Okay guys, today what we're going to do is we're going to look at how to animate fire very simply in Adobe Photoshop. So I've just got a few examples to kind of show you, but here's some reminders on how to get started. So just like our other animations, we're going to go to File New. We're going to go to Art and Illustration, and we're going to pick our very first 1000 pixel grid. So we're going to create. And then we are going to change this to motion. So we've got our nice little guy down here. So what we're going to be doing is we are going to be doing a video timeline. So that's what we need. We're going to click on it. And you see how we have our first layer. Now remember, this isn't the layer that we necessarily want. Okay, and let me move this up a little bit. This isn't the layer that we necessarily want. What we do want to see is we want to see a new blank video layer. So we're going to go up here to the top to layer, video layers, new blank video layers, and this is where we're going to do our frame by frame animation. Super easy. So just like before, we're going to start, on our first frame. And we're going to decide what is it that we are going to create. And so for this, we're going to create some fire. Now I did put examples in our folder on Schoology, some really good examples of how to create that kind of fire movement. Now I'm not sitting at a computer with a Wacom board, but you're going to use the Wacom board, so you're going to be able to use these drawing techniques that are really going to, make sense and make it look good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a brush. Okay, I'm gonna, pull my brushes palette up. So I want to do window. I want to see my brushes. Okay, general brushes. It's kind of up to you what you would like to pick. For me personally, I kind of gravitate towards something like this. And then I just kind of play with the settings until I'm happy. So I'm going to kind of change the color so you can actually see what's going on. I'm going to choose a red for just these simple purposes. And I'm going to start to kind of create my first fire shape. Okay, so let's say this is my first fire shape. Okay, which is fine. Okay, so I'm going to turn my onion skins on so I can see what's happening underneath, and I'm going to move to the next one. So because this is fire, it's going to kind of gravitate and roll. Now, this brush is a little bit too big for me right now. I'm not loving it, but for the sake of this, we're just going to keep going for a little bit. Okay, and then maybe it's going to have a couple of these little offshoots. And I'm just going to keep rolling with it. Now fire is very fluid, so you can just keep playing with it until you decide that you're ready to stop. Now for me, I'm just going to kind of move this over right now to see how we're doing. Okay, and you can see it's super fast. So let's turn it down a little bit and reduce our speed to about 50%, and let's see what happens. Okay, so now we're at about here. Okay, still a little fast for my liking. Okay, so it's getting a little bit better. Now, for me, my transitions weren't very smooth, so you want to kind of animate a little closer together. Okay, so let's see some of these examples. Okay, so this is one that a student did a few years ago. And you could see that he has multiple layers. So this layer is your like part of your hand, so that back part. Okay, here's the front part of the hand and some more detail, some shadow work that he put in. And here's that like kind of circle-y, like warmer tone backdrop. Okay, here's the background. Now these are our two animated layers. So that's the inside being animated and the outside being animated. So let's take a look at what he did. So his move slowly, so it's slow changes, where mine was jumping around quite a bit. But he still has these like little offshoots that look really well. Okay, and he even, when he was shading it or putting his colors in, he kind of faded it. So you can see the orange here down to more like a yellow orange, where the inside kind of stays that like warm yellow. So we put a gradient in there. Okay, and let's see another example. So this is another example. So he only has 3 layers. So this is a very simple animation. So we've got kind of our background, like the drawing for the colors on top, our little outline, and then here's our animated piece. So let's scroll up so you can see it. And his is just 1. But he again did the gradient, so you see the yellow tones and the orange tones. Okay, and nice, smooth, subtle changes. Now this is about 60 frames. Okay, so when we play it, you know, we probably could have slowed down a little bit, but you get that nice effect. Especially having the logs in the background that are even shaded, it makes it look like the fire's kind of coming out of them, which is good and exactly what we want. So a couple things for you to take away from is smooth, subtle changes. It is good to have something that's not going to move on one of these other layers. Okay, so in this case the fire, in the other case it was like the hand that was coming out of it. And then it's going to take probably 50 or 60 frames to get like a nice round, like special looking fire. Now this is good, this is just one color, but it's a gradient color, so there are these kind of changes that come with it. Okay, so keep that in mind while you're like coloring your pieces or, you know, adding value to them. You want them to kind of change a little bit. So this one has like an inside and an outside. This one is one color, but it is a gradient. Now, if I was to come back and do this again, some couple things I would do is I wouldn't jump around as much. I'd use like a neater brush or a neater palette. You have your like gradient tool in here that you would be able to like add in. Now my shape wasn't finished, so that's why it kind of looks a little crazy right now, but you do have this gradient tool and you do have your paint bucket tool that you could then use to like fill in certain shapes. So, you know, kind of decide what, you know, you're going to be using, decide, you know, what colors you want, and then you can go from there. So really think about, you know, what you're doing before you even start. But just remember, blue layer is what you're animating on. This is your blank video layer. These purple layers, because you can always add more. Sorry, these purple layers, they are stationary. And so, like, if you can see, I have to move this back to the beginning if I want it for the whole thing. So for this assignment, you're creating fire. Make sure it has at least one color. Make sure it's at least 60 frames, and you'll be good to go.